All right, thanks for tuning in. Let's save America and elect Tulsi Gabbard as president. My name is Dave. Tulsi Gabbard is the peace candidate. On behind me here is an episode of a show on RT, which I watch fairly religiously. It's called Crosstalk, and it is a real news and commentary show. Pretty much everything on this channel, and by the way, they have something for everybody. If you're on the left, they have a guy like Lee Camp. On the right, they've got like Peter Lavelle and others. Rick Sanchez, who is really good doing this news thing at night, where he just really puts his heart and his passion into it. So I would highly recommend it if you're tired of the propaganda. And yes, I know I'm going to be called out because RT is funded in part, of course, by the Russian government. It's called Russia Today, RT, in case you didn't know what that stood for. And of course, Tulsi Gabbard, she's in bed with Vladimir Putin and the Russians as well, and yada yada yada. You know, it's really pathetic. As she has aptly said, we're using rhetoric to start a new Cold War. Just think of that. Just think of how, look, media, you might want to call this off. This isn't a good idea. You're playing with fire. Putin is not a guy who you want to take lightly. And even though you're making all these accusations against Trump that he's a puppet of Russia and so forth, you've been at this, for 2 or 3 years now, and the country needs focus. And here we go with regime change ideas in Venezuela, Nicaragua. We're still fighting these things in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. I mean, look at all the places we go and we cause chaos, mayhem, destruction, and it doesn't help the people there, and it certainly doesn't help the people here. So Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, is the true anti-war peace candidate. Now, funny, me getting into this sort of a new realm here, it's not that I don't pay attention to all of the progressive candidates, quote unquote, but I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not that up on Bernie Sanders. I mean, I paid attention last time around. I felt he totally got duped. He got duped out of the nomination by a neocon, by the war machine, by corporate whoever who runs the show. And they knew that, or they thought anyway, that Bernie meant them harm. Bernie, I believe, was the anti-war candidate who had gotten all the way to the finish line and was told that the line had been moved, But I'm getting some folks telling me that actually Bernie is the deep state candidate, which, the way I understand the deep state runs the show. And they believe at this point that maybe Bernie is moderate and he can be installed as the president and they can manipulate him. They look at him because maybe he doesn't stand up for himself. Like that time, he had the microphone and these girls show up, these women show up, and they grab the mic away from him, and his whole team there looked frozen, like they couldn't figure out what was happening. And it's not a good, it's kind of like Michael Dukakis riding in the tank. If you remember that, it was not a good photo op for Michael Dukakis. And that wasn't a good photo op for Bernie Sanders. But I don't know. I don't know if he's the deep state candidate. All I know is that Tulsi Gabbard is the peace candidate, and she's staunch in this area. And people are upset because she went and met with Assad, and you're an Assad apologist. Meghan McCain saying, and I tell you what, John McCain, God rest his soul, he's no longer here, but there are photographs of John McCain hanging out with so many these foreign dictators and these well-known terrorists who are tied to terrorists, and you can just Google it and you're gonna, and he's smiling and they're smiling because the money and the weapons are in the bag. You know what I mean? We're going to continue to finance and arm people who are going to do harm to our own soldiers. It's happened, and it will continue to happen unless we have a candidate like Tulsi Gabbard get to the Oval Office. So that's my video on this topic. I don't know if, again, the stuff coming at me about Bernie being in with the deep state somehow, I can see it, but I don't see it yet. I do see the media kind of freaking out and the establishment freaking out about Bernie, which is a good sign for Bernie. Because if he's ticking people off in that area, then he must be doing something right. But I just don't think he's the right man for the job at this time. I think his best years are behind him. I think he should finish out his term and then gently walk away from politics. I think, he had a very long run. Or hang out in Vermont as long as you want to, as long as the people will continue to re-elect you there. I think Tulsi Gabbard is the right woman for this job at this moment, who can fuse people and get people to look at issues like me and say this issue that she's raised is actually more important than anything else. And that's why I'm here. And I'll continue to stick with her, as long as she's in it. I am in it with her. So there you go. All right, I am done with this video. I will be back with more commentary, more strange ideas coming your way. So hang out.